If permitted, Mr. Chair, if NeSe could say a couple words.
Sure. Bonjour, Anini, NeSe Indigenicas Aanishinaabeg Anini, Kevin Richard Shores Indigenicas Shaganashimug, Makwanin Dundame, Minawa Nindo Gitchida, Gawababigani Kagan Dunjiba, Minawa, Moorhead, Minnesota Nungumin Day, Chi Miigwich Gitchimanadua, Pegish Bimonteziwe Women. Hello and hi, and thank you for giving me the honor to humbly be before you, our elected council. I would like to start by saying thank you to Simon for driving me here today, and I am sorry for inconveniencing you for this long of a time frame. I please accept my apologies, sir. I also want to acknowledge Mr. Alan Roy. Beyond Terry Tibbetts, in my many years of trying to contact tribal council members, they're the only two that have reached out and spent time with me on the phone discussing this, that, and the other thing of being Anishinaabe. And when I came to Terry Tibbetts' wake or funeral, I have never felt so unwanted as a traditionalist, as much as society will allow me to wear on the equinoxes and the solstice. Excuse me for my ego, but I fast for 7 days. This summer I'll be a 20-year pipe carrier. I was presented an eagle bone whistle by the veterans of this reservation, and when I got to Terry Tibbetts' wake, it was not accessible. I had to go around the building to get inside and be pushed through 6 inches of mud to get inside the building to say farewell to a friend of mine, thus causing major disruption in my home with mud in my home for a week that the people that are subcontracted by the VA, because I'm dying with Gulf War illness because I was an experimental guinea pig, they had to absorb cleaning up that mess, which takes away from my daily living activities. Just being here now, I had to cancel 4 hours of assistance with my daily living activities and a bandage change of a brown recluse bite that I've been fighting for 6 years on my leg, where the VA wants to cut my leg off. So please forgive me for my frustration and my passion of this cannabis, because in 2004, as I've proclaimed many times, I presented almost a 3-hour presentation to the council where I told them within 3 years we would be totally self-sufficient without having to use the money given to us by the federal government or the state government, and use that money strictly for health maintenance of our people, and we would be able to provide economic sustainability for ourselves. In the last 5 years, Colorado alone has made $8 billion in revenue. And this saddens my heart and pains my heart, because I think about all of the overdoses, all of the violence with alcoholism, all of the challenges with the SSRIs and the horrific medications that they're putting our children on. And I feel responsible for those deaths because we are not utilizing cannabis for the benefit of our people. And I am ashamed to be Aanishinaabeg Anini of the White Earth Reservation, because this is unacceptable and it's unconstitutional. We placate to the dominant society and their rules and their laws, where our ancestors have been on Turtle Island for over 120,000 years in Anishinaabe territory. And it breaks my heart, because all of Maslow's hierarchy of food, shelter, and clothing can be fulfilled through the cultivation of cannabis. I promise, by implementing cannabis cultivation, not hemp or marijuana, because then we're just placating to their laws and their rules. But if we stick to the name, as I was proclaiming earlier about calling ourselves Aanishinaabeg, because the lawyer in front of us told us it's all about the language and the words. And we're Aanishinaabeg. And the plant is called cannabis. And I promise you that if you allow us to grow and exercise our inalienable rights as entities, as Anishinaabe on Mother Earth, a key, we can be self-sufficient by the end of this growing season. That if we buy, within the next 2 weeks, if we start putting seed in the ground and not for anything else but for seed, we grow for seed. We have thousands and thousands of acres here on the land to where we can utilize the cultivation of seed. And we come out with our own seed, because we cannot plant anything without asking the lapdogs or the black-booted thugs, please, can we buy seed from you? When we can create our own seeds. I cannot confirm nor deny I have enough seeds to initiate our own cannabis. I know there's people in this room right now that have initiated growing our own strain of cannabis. And if I may give you a brief history about cannabis, it was here before the white man was. The Phoenicians were bringing it up the Mississippi River when they were trading with our people, the Anishinaabe, for copper. We were utilizing cannabis. But the dominant society, the colonists, they called it hemp. And the hemp, and forgive me, I didn't check it well enough, but I have an audio recording of George Washington's writings to his gardener, where he was telling his gardener, do not lose a single India hemp, which is termed cannabis indica. And cannabis indica is known for its utilization when you smoke it. A tree of cannabis that you grew particularly to grow it and smoke it for medicinal, health maintenance purposes, they called it a cherry tree. George Washington got in trouble for cutting down his father's cherry tree because he wanted to hang it up and dry it out so he could smoke the hemp, the cannabis. That is where the story of the cherry tree came from, and him chopping down the cherry tree, because back then a rolled hemp cigarette was called a cherry, because when it glowed, when you indragged, or when you took an intake on it, it was a cherry stick. But the founding fathers were using cannabis, hemp, marijuana. Now let me share with you where marijuana came from. We just got done with the Spanish-American War. We had challenges with the Mexicans. We had challenges with, the dominant society had challenges with the Mexicans, had challenges with the minorities. And they had a challenge with hemp, because hemp was just about to revolutionize the industry, thus putting the petroleum business, the timber business, the paper business, the media business, conglomerates out of business by growing hemp or cannabis. And William Anslinger and William Randolph Hearst and the government needed to demonize the hemp plant. And so they started calling it marijuana, which is from a Spanish derivative, because in Mexico they were devout Catholics. And it was against the law to kill a Christian. And so they stopped conforming the Mexicans into Christianity so they could still kill them according to the law of the Popes Fall. And so the Mexicans, since they were also a matriarchal, and they worshipped and prayed to Mother Mary, Jesus' mother, they also prayed to John the Baptist. because John the Baptist, you needed to be baptized to become a Christian. And so when you would smoke hemp or cannabis, it would give you a euphoria. And from that euphoria, they claimed it was the same as when they got into prayer or meditation and prayed to Mother Mary and John the Baptist. You got that same uplifting when you pray to the Creator, or you pray to the gods, or however you want to call it. But you use the female plant of the hemp or cannabis to utilize in smoking. And John is a masculine word, so they changed it to a feminine word, Juana, marijuana. And so the Mexicans would talk about smoking marijuana is like praying to Mother Mary and John the Baptist. The dominant society used this as a way, the wacky tobacco, la cucaracha, they used this to demonize the hemp plant, and they started claiming that all the minorities were going crazy utilizing marijuana, cannabis, or hemp. And then through the demonization of the plant, they came up with the Marijuana Stamp Tax Act of 1937, and all of these hemp farmers came up to get their new seeds, and they said, you can't grow that anymore, it's marijuana. And they're saying, we've been growing 6-7 generations of hemp, it's hemp. But because of the legalities, and because of the labeling, because it's all in a name, and you can find the government patent is owned on cannabis for its therapeutic particulates, the government owns the patent on it. I'm sure Jake, Jodan can tell you the horticulturalists, the agriculturalists of yesteryear, they have came and already classified years and years before the establishment of Minnesota territory or the White Earth, that cannabis was already here on the land. According to our treaties, we are allowed to utilize every plant that was grown within the continental United States for health maintenance. So by law, we have all the rights in the world to grow cannabis. The biggest challenge is, though, how do we utilize the cultivation of cannabis for the people first and not for individuals? Or other people. That we should all be given the choice to cultivate cannabis because it is not against the law. What I am asking of the tribe, if I could have minimally 1 acre, if I could have 10 acres, it would be beautiful. If I could have, excuse me, forgive me, have pity on me. If not I'm sorry, that's my ego. If we, the Aanishinaabeg, could have the Callaway plot that was so wrongly given to Winona, where we spent over $100,000 in a failed crop, and then it reseeded itself, and then Winona was rewarded with harvesting that, and who got those profits? But if the people could have 10 acres, and I can show you a proposal of how, like I've said before, within 3 years, I literally think we could do it, and I told Alan Roy this, by the end of this growing season, that we could be economically self-sufficient. Because when it comes down to it, as Anishinaabe, no matter where the money comes from, it's the bankers that are holding it. And if we are truly thinking outside the box, we need to establish our own bank, a building with our own bank, with our own guards, and utilizing their fiat fake currency, and start buying our own gold and silver, because the economic collapse is upon us, as the seventh fires prophecies have stated. So if we are not out of time, the Chamook's calendar, we have a crucial planting season to initiate it right now. And if we grow hemp, and if we grow marijuana, we are gonna be destroying cannabis heirloom seeds. And if you guys are gonna squawk about monomen and keeping those heirloom seeds pure, then you guys need to address the cannabis issue too. Because the more hemp that is grown on this reservation, the more it's contrary to our teachings. And I would honor my services in any capacity without payment. Without payment, I don't need money. I get my disability from the VA and from Social Security, so I don't need any money. But if I could just be reimbursed getting here and there, I would be humbled and honored to share over 20 years of sitting and thinking and contemplating, how can I be Aanishinaabeg? Because that's who I am, Aanishinaabeg Anini. How do I help my people? And through all my experiences, cultivating cannabis is the quickest way to do it. So if you have any questions, I could talk for hours. And I have a box here. If you could pass that stuff out. It's an example of cannabis shingles. It's an example of cannabis wood. And it's an example of cannabis concrete. Food, shelter, and clothing. And I also wanted to say that I am also part of a regulatory group, well, not regulatory, sorry. We call ourselves Cannabis a Key. In the last 10 years, I have been giving presentations throughout the reservation about cultivating cannabis, and there's thousands of people, from what I've heard, that want to grow cannabis for their own purposes and their own reasons. And Cannabis a Key, I feel, was somewhat insulted because at the last quarterly, we were acknowledged and we stood up and made ourselves known. And so if this council is really looking for people that are of the people, I would say we're right here in front of you and we're being ignored or being dismissed. But I would like to relinquish any extra time, unless you guys have any questions, to any of those of that Cannabis a Key group.
Hi, Mr. Sheriff, Mayor.
Yes.
I think you raised, thank you, Kevin, for the comments that we have invited you to come down and speak on this matter today. I think you also raised a good point. We were just talking about establishing the Hemp Advisory Board and the idea that we got folks traveling and coming to these things. I think if we could maybe direct the executive director to put together an example resolution to go with a budget to help cover these expenses for those that may be interested in serving on the board. And then have you, Mr. Shores, or NeSe, are you considering applying? Have you applied to serve on the board?
As I stated earlier, I have challenges with words, and I love and respect words, but calling it hemp is placating to the dominant society. And being an Anishinaabe, I cannot in good faith or conscience be involved with it if you guys are going to misclassify it. And I hope you understand my point of view, but through all my research, we have to let them be on the defense and prove to us it's anything else but cannabis. Because if you look at the legal wording of it, and you get into cannabis, then it brings it forth that the government has patents on cannabis. So does Eli Lilly and Bayer and all the major pharmaceuticals. And that will really start up a bee's nest.
Well, I think we can certainly put when you guys have your first meeting or whatever, we can put those particulars and nuances in the resolution to help capture the essence of what's being discussed. So there's the development of business, there's part of what you spoke about. There's other folks that are interested in this as well, that I think, there's certain particulars that need to go in that resolution. I agree with you, I don't think it should be pigeonholed to just one area or one industry, but that's something I think the advisory, the committee or board or whatever we're gonna call it, that's a task that I think, it's a sacred task that I think you guys should take on and help bring in this new industry to the people of Whitehorse. I think it's a good thing, and I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day for coming down here, because this is very important. We need voices like yours at the table, not pushed away, but at the table, to make sure that these things are being heard, and folks like our tribal members are being heard. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I got a couple questions. Would any of the people that are going to be growing this year, would we be able to utilize any of the equipment for growing purposes here that White Earth owns?
That I don't know for sure.
That'd be good for the members, yeah.
All ours is, production is of its going, I think we're gonna be putting in some hemp.
I don't know.
But I mean, would the enrollees, would we have access to?
That I'm not sure of it.
You know, like, they kind of do like a garden thing where they come and till your garden
Yeah.
for you, the membership. It'd be kind of like the same thing, you know, if there's members that are interested in growing, that, and the equipment is available, maybe a program to go and, you know, till
I
the
have an
gardens.
idea.
Till the
I
gardens.
have an idea, put together a proposal.
The whole treaty is worded to change us into agrarians, to convert the Anishinaabe of White Earth into farmers. And if you look through the treaty, it states that the federal and state government is supposed to be helping us to become farmers. So why not take them to court for not helping us be farmers?
Todd, can I ask, what equipment does White Earth own? Do they own some equipment? Or?
Yeah, they've already planted,
They planted
over
2
up
years in a row.
200 over by Callaway.
the
They've already
University of
utilized
Southern?
this equipment to plant the hemp.
I don't think they've obtained that much equipment.
But I think that might be like University of Minnesota. for
Yeah, I think it
grant
is.
Provided for equipment. I don't know, like I said, if you guys come together with a proposal or something, and then we
I don't
can kick
think
it over to our folks.
us ourselves have purchased any equipment.
So they
I
planted
think
at
that's
that
all
Callaway
through
farm?
the
Sorry.
University of North Dakota. that you're in.
Minnesota, yeah.
Yeah,
We'd have to check into it. But
So-
if you're interested in using that equipment, put together.
because all we had was pilot programs through the University of North Dakota, see? We ourselves, we never purchased any of that equipment. We had talked about it, but
Yeah. One of the other questions that I had is, if, you know, we're sovereign individuals, why are we not able to utilize our treaty status to just go ahead and I mean, it is a medicine, it is a medicine, you know. Why are we not able to just go ahead and grow the cannabis?
Because no one's exercising their rights, just do it.
And just be left alone doing it. I mean, why can't we utilize the treaty status for that?
But you can, that's the
I mean,
frustration.
I know we
Yeah.
can, but I
Yeah.
mean, we seem like we're getting harassed and ticketed and everything else.
Then bring him to
because of-
court, writ of habeas corpus, bring it to court. That's how we gotta fight the dominant society, is we gotta just make the
I mean,
stand.
I wanna hear what
Well,
what the
I think this
RBC
is-
has to say about
It's a
this.
great opportunity for the board and committee to start answering those questions
Yeah.
and putting together recommendations that you think the RBC should be doing. I mean, to me, that is it would be making an informed decision, we'd have our ducks in a row and stuff. But this is just we haven't even put our foot in the water yet. Like, this is what this board is, we're getting us started, so we can start that industry, we can ask those questions and try to find answers to them.
But how was,
But yeah, I defer to you guys, because I don't know anything about the hemp industry.
But I mean, I'm
but
not
how was
talking
Winona
about-
given such precedence and privilege? That's an absolute violation of equal opportunity to she can grow and no one else can?
Well, at the
she
same
don't
time,
have
there
she has
wasn't,
a state grow license, so
But the state has told us that there's garbage on the reservation. They won't even give me a certification, a certificate on how to grow.
I know she was farming a little
Out in
section there
Callaway,
in Callaway
she
there,
But
grew a lot of.
Is that
herb
Callaway
on-
plot
Well, I don't know
seeded?
about right now, but last
No.
summer she had.
It will
Okay,
be.
original-
Yes.
but let me share
It's
with,
still there.
let me share strategically.
well, she hasn't
With
come in and
volunteers.
really done her lease yet.
Well, strategically, that Callaway plot, if you look at the way that Mother Earth has been shifting, our wind is coming more from the southwest than the north as it used to be. And that Callaway plot, if they grow industrial hemp there, then you cannot stop pollination. And that wind is gonna be blowing the pollination from the male plants of that strategically located spot, and it's gonna spread it across the reservation, thus manipulating everyone else's want of growing cannabis. You can't stop the birds and the bees and pollination. And so we really have to look at it strategically. How are we gonna regulate the pollination? Because the hemp and marijuana wars are gonna be starting.
I think these are great questions that you guys can take up on the board, and you guys can hammer that out and bring it to us, and we'll act on it.
I got one other, if we get nailed, if we do practice our treaty right, if we go out there and we plant, we have the feds come in and raid us, ticket us, would we have access to any attorneys to help us out with any,
So are you saying like as like a farmer or something like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're practicing our treaty, right? I mean, we're growing medicine, and we end up having the
So we
feds
have
come
to
in
have
and take all of our
business
plants out.
lawyers.
Well, we have regional native public defense.
But would they help in
They
cases
should,
like
because
this?
This would be a criminal offense, so yes, that
No.
would.
No, it's
Well,
not.
no,
It's not.
from the feds,
Not
if the
anymore.
feds enforced it, they
No.
would look at it as a criminal. So that's where Native Regional Public Defense Corporation
Yeah.
would come in for the defense.
There are thousands of lawyers in the cannabis community that are waiting and willing to come and help us.
There you go. So
But I mean, so would we
There you
have
go.
any, would we have any backing from the band, from the White Earth band here, and helping us as, individuals?
You're saying to help pay the lawyer fees?
Well, to help us, help defend us, because it's a treaty issue.
Well, I think that's something the board, like I said, I think the board should come up with recommendations, like if the band should have a set aside of a fund to help pay for legal expenses related to this industry and this activity. That's something I think the board, I would highly recommend that.
I mean,
That way you can retain a lawyer, have a lawyer on staff to help deal with these issues.
Perhaps maybe even all the growers can donate to a fund.
Well, yeah, I mean, an
To help each
association.
other out as it goes through the years.
Okay,
You know?
I mean, look at what is it, you got Minnesota Farmers Alliance. They got all these farmers, they get together and they talk about regulatory, they talk about shaping the industry, they talk about what's going on in the season, but they also have lawyers that they contract with, and that helps pay for all this stuff. And I think maybe what I would recommend the board do is invite one of those guys, those farmer guys, to come over and talk to you and say how did they set up? And how did they got all that stuff set up, and they can give you some recommendations.
Well, through my experience in education, I've come up with proposals of getting over the clouded land titles utilizing cannabis. We have, I can't remember what the number is of how many acres of farmland we have on the reservation, but,
It's a little over 500.
and then even like the land that is owned by private people. But it's crucial that we get seeds in the ground for our people, whether it be personal or on, is there any farmland that the council can say, yes, you guys as a group, or as the people of White Earth, can each have 6 by 6 feet, actually better because of circular growing, if we each were allowed a 12-foot circle to grow our own cannabis.
Well, I think these are great. great discussion, you can bring it up to the board when it finally forms at sometime in May here.
Ag
You see it on the
and the
board,
land
and
office can answer those
You
questions
can
too.
call
for us, you know,
people
for
from the
what's
land
out there.
office to come in there and help answer these questions, and then when you're ready, when your decision's ready, you make a key recommendation to the council to do something.
But the lease office right now, the last one who got an agricultural lease was Winona. And then they shut that down. I don't know if they reopened it since.
All fair questions, I think that the board will be able to answer.
Just
And I hope to see an application in there from folks in this room, so.
Does Cannabis a Key have any acknowledgement from the RBC?
Well, you guys presented at the
Yeah,
last quarterly,
quarterly,
I
yeah.
think the chair recognized you.
Okay. Wasn't there something in, didn't you and Jodan mention at one point that Cannabis a Key had somewhat authority that we were gonna be acting on behalf of White Earth?
No, we wanted to be recognized as White Earth's main consultation group in dealing with cannabis in this industry and how we're gonna.
So you did, I mean,
Part of
Cannabis
it.
Key, I think I would recommend you guys talk to the board and express your interest in the industry, and that'd be something that the board should take into consideration, because you gotta look at our constitution and our bylaws, which we gotta follow at this table, which says that, you know, if we're to establish a committee or a board, it must be by resolution, and it must be in conformance with our own constitution.
In the
And
Constitution,
so,
sorry.
may I finish?
Yes, sir.
So what I'm saying is Cannabis Key has not been established under that process, right? So, right now, my recommendation to Cannabis Key would be is to, because the Hemp Advisory Board will be in conformance with our constitution, that you start a dialogue with the board, right? And hopefully you get some of your members or the constituents involved to apply to be on the board. Because the formal process, you gotta look at the Constitution, it says we can establish committees and boards, but it's just, it has to be in conformance with the rules and regs. Right now, you guys you weren't established that way, you've established an association of some sort, but you'd have to make sure that this advisory board, the intent is for it to be in conformance with our Constitution.
But
So
can,
just have a conversation with the board.
can this board grant us a plot of land somewhere where we can get seeds into the ground
The board-
tomorrow?
So again, to be in conformance with the Constitution, the RBC under Article 6 has the authority to grant loans and what do they call it? Chattel and
Chattel, yeah.
Chattel, right, to our members, right? Now, I don't know if Cannabis Key is a member of the tribe, but there's individuals within Cannabis Key that certainly could benefit from that. But the board itself, the committee itself, the way things are written, cannot grant that access. The committee would make a recommendation to the RBC under Article 6 to grant those things to individual tribal members. Make sense?
So,
Just look at Article 6.
about how long does this take us? This might take till next year, because we got seeds that are ready to go in, and we got plants that are ready.
The board is to be established next month. I mean, what, like, geez, it's already the 29th, so like,
29th would be.
it's 24th is the due date application?
Yeah.
They're saying you should have the season going on the 15th. That's what they're saying.
Could I say something? You're all talking about, you know, asking the tribe for land or, right? Is that what you're doing here to grow the hemp or cannabis, whatever you want to call it? Does anybody that is going to grow it have their own land?
But we're
Right
in
here,
Anishinaabe, we don't
I have
own
an
land.
agricultural lease plot, that's why I'm asking, because this is still part of the RBC, and I wanna grow. That's why I'm saying, am I gonna grow and have the state people and the Fed people come in and totally clear me all out and then set me up with a bunch of court tickets because it's a treaty issue?
Well, it's not only.
And the RBC should be
I don't think
backing
it's only
me.
a tree issue. I think that what happened at the federal level was that they decriminalized
That's right.
the right to grow
There-
hemp.
there is no
It's now a
legalization.
agricultural issue, a farm issue.
I'm talking about cannabis. I'm talking about the stuff with the THC in it.
Well, then that's another argument.
But that's, but this goes back to the whole
I
thing.
think it's
If
a
you,
legal question the board
if-
can help, because there's our lawyer sits on that, is gonna sit on that board. That's a good, I
but-
think guys, we should start that conversation.
Guys, we got lots to go here yet, so. Any more comments?
Yeah, just one more thing, I'm done. On my egg lease, forestry came in and they planted on half of my egg lease a bunch of these little pine trees, and I went to forestry and I told them what happened. You can see it from the map where they planted all these trees on my egg lease. So I wanna see if I can get any kind of help out of any of you people to push forestry to come back in there and take those plants out. They're like little trees, spruce or little pines. And they never came and talked to me about it. They just went ahead
When
and
did they do that?
They did this like 2
When
years
they
ago.
decide they wanna
Well,
build more
but your
skyscrapers?
ag lease, we just approved your ag lease, you're not, less than a
No,
month
I've had it,
ago.
I had this egg lease for years.
I don't know if that's the same one or not, but we just approved one for you here about less than a month
Yeah,
ago.
but I mean, the trees are on there now, but I mean, I had an egg lease prior to that too, where they came in, but now, I mean, the trees are there now, so I guess I'm asking you if I can get some help from you, to have them come in there and take those trees out, so I can, I mean, I'm paying for this lease, so.
Well, it's very possible that the DNR, or whoever planted trees could have brought in, and I don't know, but they could have brought in a resolution, because the RBC can adjust your lease. It can adjust your lease.
Yeah, I know, but when I talked to forestry about it, that guy never
Yeah.
said anything about that. He said he didn't know
Sure.
that there was an egg lease there. That's what I was told, that he did not know that there was an egg lease there. And I just came home from one day, late after work in the evening. I come home and that stuff was all plowed out. So, I mean, I'm wondering if you can, I don't know,
Check on the status.
talk to forestry and say, you guys gotta go back in there, you gotta take those trees out. I mean, this guy's been paying for this.
I think it's probably best to start with the land office to see if
Just
they
figure out
knew
what's
the
going
forestry,
on.
that's, I think, and I'm not saying, but I would think that the land office maybe didn't get clear, either that or forestry didn't know where your ag lease was.
Somebody had
Somebody messed-
miscommunication there.
Yeah,
Yeah, very possible.
Could I get some help out of you, so?
He'll check into
I'll
it.
make some phone calls on it today.
Okay, cool, appreciate it.
May I bring up one thing personally, please?
One more thing,
Okay,
we
sorry.
gotta get going here.
Miigwech. In 2004, I went out and followed an ego to Big Rat Lake, where I put my name down for a place to where I can make a domicile or reside at. I spent almost $16,000 making a road to go out there that my brother Douglas here can attest to. I had the whole area surveyed for the whole distinguish of the hill and everything up there. And then in February, Bowser came out there and he declared nothing was done in the area. And then they took the lots away from my brothers and my sister and my mother, only leaving me there still to build a dwelling. I continued to utilize this. Next thing I know, Many Penny is living up on the other side of the hill. Then the DNR comes and puts a roadblock on the road that I paid to be made to get back there for my land. Now I'm fighting with the lease office about reestablishing that area because I have all the documentation.
We talked about that this morning, they say when land was in here, and our suggestion was that you go to them and with whatever documents you have on that piece of property out there. All they have in their documents is a camping permit. That's all they have.
Right, well, I had Earl Hoagland performed a spirit binding ceremony with me and my ex-partner on that land. And, yeah, well, it's just really frustrating, because as I said earlier, I feel unwelcome on the reservation. And that adds to that feeling of being unwelcome, because I followed tradition, and an eagle showed me to grow there and build there. So, miigwech.
You bet.
Thank you.
Guys,
Thank you.
see around. Make sure you guys come in for that board.
Right.